Some moments in life crack you open in ways you never see coming. For Dr. Claire Mendel, that moment arrived on an ordinary Tuesday when a frightened grandmother walked into her office holding the hand of a 10-year-old girl. The child had 3 strange bumps on her forehead. They'd appeared overnight. When Claire touched the first one, it burst. But instead of pus or blood, a tiny piece of paper fell out. Claire unfolded it with shaking hands. 4 words were written in a child's handwriting. "Please find me, Claire." The other bumps opened too. More papers, more messages, all signed, with the same name. Her sister who'd vanished 36 years ago when she was 10, the same age as this girl sitting in her office. How could these messages exist? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning had started like any other in Dr. Claire Mendel's carefully ordered life. At 6:15, her alarm clock performed its duty with the same soft chime that had awakened her for the past 12 years. She rose from her bed, feet finding, the wool slippers positioned precisely where she'd left them the night before. The coffee maker, programmed the previous evening, had already filled her kitchen with the familiar aroma of dark roast Colombian beans. Claire moved through her townhouse. With practiced efficiency, each action a small ritual in the architecture of her day. The shower lasted exactly 8 minutes. Her wardrobe selection took 2, always professional, always understated. Navy blue dress today, the one with the modest neckline and sleeves, that fell just past her elbows. Her patient's parents appreciated the conservative presentation. It suggested competence without intimidation, authority without coldness. By 7 o'clock, she sat at her breakfast table, medical journals spread. Before her like a morning prayer book. The American Journal of Dermatology featured an article on pediatric eczema treatments she'd been meaning to review. She made notes in the margins with her fountain pen, the one her father had given her when she graduated from medical school. 23 years ago. He'd been gone 8 years now, but the pen still wrote smooth and true. The photograph on her mantel caught the morning light as she gathered her things for work. It was the only family photo she displayed. Herself at 12, her parents behind her, all of them trying to smile for the camera just 3 months after Emily disappeared. You could see it in their eyes, that hollow quality that comes when a family loses a piece of itself. Her mother's hand rested on Claire's shoulder, gripping perhaps a bit too tightly, as if afraid she might vanish too. Claire hadn't spoken to her mother Helen in nearly 2 years. Their last conversation had ended the way most of them did, with Helen bringing up Emily and Claire finding an excuse to end the call. It wasn't cruelty that kept Claire distant. It was survival. Some wounds, she'd learned, never stopped bleeding if you kept picking at them. The drive to her practice took 22 minutes in morning traffic. She'd chosen the location carefully, a medical complex in a quiet suburb where young families flourished and pediatric specialists were always in demand. The bronze placard beside her office door read, "Claire Mendel, MD, Pediatric Dermatology," in tasteful serif font. No decorations, no attempts at whimsy to appeal to children. She left that to the pediatricians down the hall with their cartoon, murals and treasure chest of prizes. Her office reflected her personality, organized, professional, deliberately impersonal. Medical degrees hung in simple black frames. A single orchid sat on the windowsill, chosen for its minimal care requirements and subtle beauty. The examination rooms were painted in soft gray, a color that suggested calm without the clinical. Sterility of white, everything in its place, everything with a purpose. "Good morning, Dr. Mendel." Sandra, her receptionist, greeted her with customary warmth. Sandra had worked for Claire for 7 years and knew better than to attempt small. Talk before the doctor's second cup of coffee. "Morning, Sandra. What's the schedule looking like?" "Full day. First appointment is at 8:30, the Morrison twins for their follow-up. Then the Williams boy at 9 for his psoriasis check. 9:30 is a new patient." Sandra glanced. At her computer screen. Lily Chen, age 10. Grandmother called yesterday, said it was urgent. Something about unusual bumps on the child's forehead. Claire nodded, already shifting into her professional mindset. Unusual bumps could mean anything from common warts to something more serious. She'd seen it all in her years of practice, mysterious rashes that turned out to be reactions to new laundry detergent, spots that parents swore were changing color, but were simply bruises in various stages of healing, lumps that terrified families but proved benign. She settled into her office to review patient files, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of medical histories and treatment plans. This was where she excelled, in the clear boundaries of diagnosis and treatment, where emotion had no place and problems had solutions that could be written on prescription pads or scheduled for procedures. Marcus Webb knocked on her doorframe. At 8:15, holding 2 cups of coffee from the cafe downstairs. "Thought you might need reinforcement," he said, offering her one of the cups. Marcus ran the pediatric cardiology practice 2 doors down. They'd developed a friendship of sorts over the years, professional colleagues who occasionally shared coffee and commentary on difficult cases. He was one of the few people who didn't. He'd press when she declined invitations to social gatherings or holiday parties. "You're a saint," Claire said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Long night with the journals?" "Always. There's a new study on atopic dermatitis in adolescents I'm working through. Fascinating stuff about genetic markers." Marcus smiled, the expression crinkling the corners of his eyes. He was 52, divorced, with twin daughters in college. "Only you would describe genetic markers as fascinating at 8 in the morning." "It's what I do," Claire replied simply. "It's who you are," Marcus corrected gently. "There's a difference, you know, between what we do and who we are." Claire didn't respond, turning her attention back to her files. Marcus meant well, but he didn't understand. For Claire, the distinction between her work and her identity had been deliberately erased years ago. It was safer that way. The Morrison twins arrived precisely on time, their mother shepherding them with practiced efficiency. Claire examined their healing eczema patches, adjusted their treatment plan, and sent them on their way with minimal fuss. The Williams boy was next, his psoriasis responding well to the new medication regimen. Routine cases, routine solutions. This was the rhythm she'd built her life around. At 9:25, Sandra knocked softly. "Your 9:30 is here." There, in exam room 2, Claire finished her notes on the Williams case and made her way to the examination room. She paused outside the door, reading the intake form Sandra had prepared. Lily Chen, 10 years old. Chief complaint, unexplained bumps. On forehead, appeared overnight. No fever, no other symptoms. Guardian, Margaret Chen, maternal grandmother. She knocked twice and entered. The woman who looked up at her appeared to be in her late 60s, silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, worry etched deeply into the lines. Around her eyes, beside her, sat a small girl with delicate features and dark hair that fell to her shoulders. The child was reading a book, something about butterflies, Claire noticed, seemingly unconcerned about her surroundings. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Dr. Mendel, and this must be Lily." Margaret Chen stood, extending her hand. Her grip was firm but trembling slightly. "Doctor, thank you for seeing us so quickly. I didn't know where else to turn." "That's what we're here for," Claire said, keeping her voice professionally warm. She turned to the child. "Hello, Lily. That's an interesting book you have there." Lily looked up and Claire felt an unexpected jolt. The girl's eyes were grey-green, an unusual color that seemed to shift in the fluorescent light. There was something in her gaze, an old soul quality that some children possessed, as if they knew things they couldn't possibly understand. "It's about monarch butterflies," Lily said quietly. "They migrate thousands of miles to places they've never been. But somehow, they know the way. Their children return to the same trees their parents left from, even though they've never seen them before." "That's quite remarkable," Claire said, genuinely intrigued by the child's articulation. "May I examine your forehead now?" Lily nodded, setting her book aside. Claire moved closer, adjusting the examination light. There they were, 3 raised bumps, each about the size of a pencil eraser, arranged in a triangular pattern just above the child's eyebrows. They appeared to be fluid-filled, like blisters, but the skin around them showed no signs of inflammation or infection. "How long have these been present?" Claire asked, gently palpating the area around the bumps. "Since yesterday morning," Margaret answered. "Lily woke up with them. She said they didn't hurt, but—" The older woman paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "She's been having strange dreams. She talks in her sleep about people I don't know, places she's never been." Claire continued her examination, reaching for her dermatoscope to get a magnified view. Dreams can be very vivid at this age. Has Lily been under any stress lately? Starting a new school year, perhaps? No, nothing like that. We live a quiet life, just the 2 of us since— Margaret stopped abruptly. "Since my parents died," Lily finished calmly. "When I was a baby. I don't remember them." Claire noted this in the file, maintaining her professional demeanor even as something tugged at her consciousness. There was something about this child, something that made the air in the room feel charged with possibility. "I'm going to take a closer look," Claire said, adjusting her dermatoscope. As she leaned in, she noticed the bumps seemed to have a translucent quality, as if something was suspended within the fluid. She'd never seen anything quite like it in all her years of practice. "Doctor," Lily said suddenly, her voice taking on a dreamy quality, "do you ever feel like you're supposed to find something you lost, like there's a piece of you somewhere, waiting?" Claire's hand stilled. "What makes you ask that, Lily?" "I don't know. Sometimes I just know things. Like how I knew you'd be wearing blue today. Emily said you always liked blue." The dermatoscope slipped from Claire's fingers, clattering onto the examination table. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the child. "What did you say?" "Emily," Lily repeated, seeming confused by Claire's reaction. "She's in my dreams sometimes. She says she's been waiting for someone to find her. She said you'd understand." Margaret stood quickly, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Doctor, are you all right? You've gone very pale." Claire couldn't speak. Emily was a name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in years. Her sister's name, her sister who had vanished 36 years ago, when she was exactly Lily's age. It had to be a coincidence. Had to be. "I'm fine," Claire managed, though her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "I just need to— let me get a different instrument." She turned toward her supply cabinet, using the moment to compose herself. Her hands shook as she pulled open a drawer, pretending to search for something. Behind her she heard Margaret whispering to Lily, asking if she'd said something wrong. "No, Grandma," Lily replied. "She needed to hear it. Emily said she would understand when the time was right." Claire gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles white. This wasn't possible. This child couldn't know about Emily. No one knew about Emily except her family, and even they never spoke of her anymore. She forced herself to take 3 deep breaths to reassemble her professional mask. When she turned back, both grandmother and granddaughter were watching her with concern. "I apologize," Claire said carefully. "I had a sister named Emily once. Hearing the name unexpectedly caught me off guard." "Had?" Margaret asked gently. "She disappeared when we were children. It was a long time ago." Lily tilted her head, studying Claire with those unsettling grey-green eyes. "She didn't disappear. She got lost. There's a difference." Before Claire could respond, before she could ask what the child meant, something extraordinary happened. The first bump on Lily's forehead began to change. The fluid within seemed to swirl, and then, impossibly, it burst, not with the explosive force of a popped blister, but gently, like a flower opening its petals. No blood emerged. No pus. Instead, a tiny piece of paper, no bigger than a fortune from a cookie, fell onto the examination table. All 3 of them stared at it in stunned silence. Claire reached for it with trembling fingers, unfolding it carefully. The paper, was soft, almost fabric-like, and covered in a child's careful handwriting. 4 words that stopped her heart. "Please find me, Claire." The examination room felt suddenly airless, as if all the oxygen had been pulled out through some invisible vacuum. Claire stared at the piece of paper in her hand, those 4 words burning into her retina like after-images from staring at the sun, her sister's name, her own name, written in a child's hand that she recognized even after 36 years. Margaret Chen had backed against the wall, her arm protectively around Lily's shoulders. "What just happened? What is that? How did that come from—" "Grandma, it's okay," Lily said calmly, though her face had gone pale. "They need to come out, all of them. It's time." Before Claire could process the child's words, the second bump began to change. The same swirling motion within the translucent bubble, the same gentle opening. Another piece of paper fluttered down like a wounded butterfly. Claire caught it before it hit the table. "Remember the blue butterfly in the garden? You caught it, but I made you let it go." The handwriting was the same, the memory was real. Claire had been 12, Emily 10. They'd been in their backyard on a summer afternoon, and Claire had managed to trap a blue morpho butterfly under a glass jar. Emily had cried until Claire released it, saying butterflies died if they couldn't fly free. It was 2 weeks before Emily disappeared. "Dr. Mendel, should I call someone? Should we go to the emergency room?" Margaret's voice seemed to come from very far away. Claire couldn't answer. The third bump was already beginning to move. This time, she held out her palm, catching the paper as it emerged. Her hands shook so badly she could barely unfold it. "The attic key is still under the 3rd step. You promised we'd go back." Another memory, another piece of their shared childhood. They'd found an old key while playing in the garden and decided it must open something magical in their grandmother's attic. They'd hidden it under the 3rd step of the back porch, planning a grand adventure that never came. Emily vanished the following Monday. "There are more," Lily whispered. She lifted her hair, revealing 4 more bumps along her hairline that hadn't been visible before. "They all want to come out, but these hurt more." Claire finally found her voice, though it came out cracked and strange. "How do you know my sister? How is this possible?" "I don't know her," Lily said, wincing as one of the new bumps pulsed. "But she's in my dreams every night. She shows me things, places I've never been, people I've never met. And you, she shows me you all the time. You're younger in the dreams, but I knew it was you when we walked in. You still make the same face when you're trying not to cry." The observation was so precise, so impossibly accurate, that Claire felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. She was making that face now, jaw clenched, eyes deliberately wide to keep tears from forming, the way she'd learned to hold herself together in those terrible months after Emily disappeared. The 4th bump burst, more forcefully this time. Lily cried out, a small, pained sound. The paper that emerged was slightly larger, the writing more urgent. "They said I had to go, but I didn't want to leave you. The man with the white coat said it was for everyone's safety. I'm still here, Claire. We're all still here." "Who's they?" Claire asked, her professional composure completely shattered. "Who took her? Where is here?" Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her face as the 5th bump began to swell. "I don't know. The dreams don't show me everything, just pieces, like looking through broken glass." Margaret had pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911. This isn't natural. This isn't possible." "No," Claire said sharply. "Please, not yet. I need to understand what's happening." "Understand? Papers are coming out of my granddaughter's skin. There's nothing to understand. This is madness." The 5th message emerged, with a wet sound that made Margaret gasp. The paper was damp this time, tinged pink with what looked like blood. Lily swayed on the examination table, and Claire instinctively reached out to steady her. "And the other children are here too. Tommy Chen. Is he Lily's family? He says hello. He says he's sorry about the park." Claire's blood turned to ice. Tommy Chen had been a boy from their neighborhood who disappeared 3 months before Emily. The police had found his bicycle in the park, the same park where Emily would later vanish. The cases were never officially connected, but Claire's parents had whispered about it when they thought she wasn't listening. "Is your family related to a Thomas Chen?" Claire asked Margaret urgently. Margaret's face went white. "My brother. He disappeared when he was 11, back in 1989. How could she know that?" The sixth bump was moving now, but Lily was shaking. "It hurts," she whimpered. "This one hurts so much." Claire grabbed her medical kit, pulling out supplies with hands that somehow remained steady despite the earthquake happening inside her. "I'm going to apply a topical anesthetic. It might help with the pain." As she worked, the sixth message: "Push through." The paper was larger, folded multiple times. When Claire opened it, she found not words but a drawing. A child's sketch of multiple figures standing in what looked like a dark space, reaching upward toward points of light. At the bottom, in Emily's handwriting, "We're waiting in the between." "A place! One more!" Lily gasped. "The last one is the most important." The seventh bump had appeared at the center of Lily's forehead, larger than the others, pulsing with a rhythm that looked almost like a heartbeat. Claire could see something moving within it, not fluid, but something solid, something substantial. "Margaret, hold her hand," Claire instructed, switching fully into doctor mode, despite the impossibility of the situation. "Lily, look at me. Breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth." The final bump burst with enough force to make Lily cry out. What fell onto the table wasn't just paper, but a small object wrapped in paper. Claire unwrapped it with infinite care, her breath catching when she saw what lay inside. It was a cheap friendship bracelet, the kind children made at summer camp. Colored threads woven together in a simple pattern, blue and purple, Emily's favorite colors. Claire had made it for her sister's 10th birthday, just weeks before she disappeared. Emily had promised to never take it off. The paper wrapped around it contained the longest message yet. "Claire, I know you blame yourself. I've seen you in the mirror sometimes, the way souls can see each other across the divide. You got older, but I stayed the same. The man in the white coat said it was necessary, that we were special, that we could see through the walls others couldn't. But I didn't want to be special. I just wanted to come home. Lily can see through the walls too. That's why I can reach her. But she's stronger than we were. They'll come for her soon, just like they came for us. You have to protect her. You have to find us. The place between places isn't meant to hold us forever. We're fading." I kept the bracelet. I kept everything. I knew you'd come for me someday. You always protected me before. Please, Claire, before it's too late. All my love. Emily, P.S. Mom. Needs to know I forgive her for letting them take me. Tell her it wasn't her fault. Claire's legs gave out. She sank into the visitor's chair, the bracelet clutched in her fist. 36 years of suppressed grief came flooding out in great, gasping sobs that she couldn't control. Through her tears, she saw Lily slip off the examination table and approach her slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "She loves you so much," Lily said softly. In the dreams, that's all she talks about. Her big sister Claire, who was going to be a doctor and help people. "She's so proud that you did it." Margaret stood frozen by the wall, her phone still in her hand, 911 half-dialed. "Dr. Mendel, what is happening to my granddaughter? What is this place between places? Who are they?" Claire wiped her eyes, trying to gather herself. The scientist in her knew this was impossible. Paper couldn't manifest inside human tissue. Children couldn't send messages across dimensional barriers or whatever this was. But the bracelet in her hand was real. The memories were real. And somehow, impossibly, Emily was alive. Trapped somewhere, but alive. "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But I'm going to find out." "Lily, do the dreams show you anything else? Any clues about where Emily and the others are?" Lily nodded slowly. "Sometimes I see a building, white walls, no windows. There are machines that hum all the time, and there's a symbol on the door, like a tree but with roots that go up instead of down." Claire pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen as she searched for anything matching that description. Her mind was racing, connecting dots that had been scattered for decades. Tommy Chen's disappearance, Emily's, other children from their neighborhood who had vanished without explanation in the late 1980s. Her parents' strange behavior afterward, their insistence on never talking about it, their immediate move across the country. "Mrs. Chen," Claire said, her voice steadier now, filled with new purpose, "I need you to tell me everything about your brother's disappearance. Every detail you remember, no matter how small. But my granddaughter, she needs medical attention. Those bumps, they're not normal." Claire gently examined Lily's forehead. Where the bumps had been, only faint pink marks remained, already fading. "They're gone. Whatever they were, they've served their purpose." She looked at Lily, seeing not just a patient now, but a connection to her sister, a bridge across impossible space. "You said they'll come for her. Who are they, Lily?" "When?" Lily's grey-green eyes went distant, unfocused. "Soon. Maybe days. Maybe hours. The dreams are getting stronger. Emily says once the messages are delivered, they'll know. They always know." Claire stood, decision crystallizing in her mind. She'd spent 36 years running from Emily's ghost, building walls of professionalism and distance to keep the pain at bay. But Emily wasn't a ghost. She was alive, trapped, waiting. And now another child was in danger. "Then we need to move. Fast," Claire said. She turned to Margaret. "I know this is impossible to believe, but your granddaughter is in danger. The same people who took my sister and your brother. They're going to come for Lily. We need to get her somewhere safe while I figure out what's really going on. You're asking me to trust you based on impossible things coming out of my granddaughter's skin." Claire held up the friendship bracelet, its cheap threads somehow still bright after all these years. "I'm asking you to trust me because I've already lost one little girl to whatever this is. I won't lose another." Claire's townhouse had never felt so small. She moved through it like a stranger, seeing her carefully ordered life through new eyes. The eyes of someone whose dead sister had just reached across 36 years to ask for help. Margaret and Lily sat in her living room, the grandmother's arm protective around the child, who seemed unnaturally calm for someone who just had impossible messages burst from her skin. "I need to make some calls," Claire said, her voice sounding hollow. In her own ears. "Make yourselves comfortable. There's juice in the refrigerator, crackers in the pantry." She escaped to her bedroom, closing the door and leaning against it. Her hands were shaking again. The friendship bracelet was still clutched in her fist, the threads pressing patterns into her palm. She couldn't stop seeing Emily's face, not as it had been, frozen at 10 years old in her memory, but as it might be now, still 10. Or aged somehow in whatever prison held her. The closet door stood slightly ajar, and through the gap she could see the box. She'd moved it from apartment to apartment, house to house, never opening it, but never able to throw it away either. Emily's things. The few items her parents had let her keep before their abrupt move from Ohio to California, before the imposed silence that had defined the rest of their family life. Claire pulled the box out with reverent care. It was just a banker's box, nothing special. Emily, written on the side in her mother's careful script. Inside, layered in tissue paper like archaeological artifacts, were the remnants of a 10-year-old girl's life. A copy of Charlotte's Web, with Emily's name written inside the cover. A school photo from 4th grade, Emily grinning with a missing front tooth. A report card showing all A's except for a B in physical education. Emily had always been clumsy, more interested in reading than running. At the bottom, wrapped in plastic, was Emily's diary. Claire had never read it. It felt like a violation, reading the private thoughts of a sister who couldn't give permission. But now, with those impossible messages spread across her bed, with Lily sitting in her living room bearing wounds that shouldn't exist, the diary felt less like an invasion and more like a map. The first entries were typical 10-year-old observations. Mrs. Patterson was mean for giving homework on Fridays. Sarah Miller had gotten a new bike and wouldn't let anyone ride it. Mom made meatloaf again, even though everyone hated it except Dad. But as Claire read, the entries began to change. 3 weeks before Emily's disappearance, the tone shifted. Had the dream again. The white room with the humming machines. There were other kids there. They looked scared, but also like they were waiting for something. When I woke up, there were marks on my forehead. Mom said it was just acne, but they don't look like pimples. Claire's breath caught. She flipped the page. The man in the white coat came to school today. He said he was a doctor doing checkups, but he only looked at me and Tommy Chen and that new girl, Patricia. He had really cold hands. He said I was special, that I could see things others couldn't. I wanted to tell him about the dreams, but something made me stay quiet. The next entry was dated 2 days later. Tommy's gone. His mom came to our house crying. The police said he ran away, but Tommy wouldn't do that. He was scared of the dark. In my dream last night, I saw him in the white room. He was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear him through the humming. Claire's hands trembled as she turned to the final entry, dated the morning of Emily's disappearance. I drew what I saw in the dream. Claire, if you ever read this, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was scared you'd think I was crazy. The man in the white coat says I have to come with him. He says it's for everyone's safety, that kids like me can break things without meaning to. I don't want to go, but Mom and Dad say I have to. They're crying, but they won't look at me. I love you, Claire. Please don't forget me. Tucked behind the last page was a drawing, folded small. Claire opened it carefully. It showed a building with no windows, surrounded by trees with inverted roots, exactly as Lily had described. At the bottom, in Emily's careful printing, the between place. A knock at her bedroom door made her jump. "Dr. Mendel?" Margaret's voice was tight with worry. "Lily's having another episode." Claire rushed to the living room to find Lily standing at the window, her eyes unfocused, swaying slightly. She was speaking, but the voice wasn't quite her own. It was younger, more hesitant. "Claire, Claire, can you hear me? The connection is stronger now. The messages got through. I can feel you close by. We don't have much time. They know the barrier was breached. They'll come for the girl. Don't let them take her, Claire. She's the key. She can open doors we could only see." "Emily?" Claire grabbed Lily's shoulders gently. "Emily, is that you?" Lily's eyes cleared suddenly and she gasped, stumbling backward. "She was here, in my head. It felt like someone else wearing my thoughts." Margaret pulled Lily close. "This is insane. We should be at a hospital." "A hospital can't help with this," Claire said. She showed them Emily's diary, the drawing. "This has been happening for decades, maybe longer. Children who can see through some kind of barrier, who were taken by someone, some organization." Her phone rang. Marcus Webb's name appeared on the screen. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Claire, where are you? You had appointments this afternoon. Sandra's worried." "I had an emergency. Marcus, I need to ask you something strange. In your practice, have you ever seen children with unexplained marks or bumps on their foreheads? Children who talked about strange dreams or seeing places that didn't exist?" There was a long pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was different, careful, measured. "Why are you asking about that? You have seen them." "Claire, we should talk about this in person, not over the phone." A chill ran down her spine. "Marcus, what do you know?" "I know that you should be very careful right now. I know that asking these questions attracts attention you don't want. Can you come to my office? Bring whoever you're trying to protect." The line went dead. Claire stared at the phone, her mind racing. Marcus knew something. How many people knew? How many had stayed silent while children disappeared? "We need to leave," she said suddenly. "Pack whatever you need for a few days. We're going to see a colleague of mine." "I'm not going anywhere until you explain what's happening," Margaret said firmly. Claire pulled out Emily's diary, showing her the entries. In 1989, something was taking children who were different, who could perceive things others couldn't. My sister, your brother, others, they were taken to some kind of facility, and now, she looked at Lily, they want your granddaughter. But why? What makes her special? Lily spoke up quietly. I've always known things. Like when Grandpa was going to die, I knew 3 days before. Or when the phone's about to ring, I know who it is. And lately, the dreams have been getting stronger. I see places that aren't here, but aren't exactly somewhere else either, like they're sideways from real. Claire knelt in front of the girl. Emily said you're stronger than they were, that you can open doors they could only see. Do you understand what that means? Lily shook her head. But maybe I can learn. If it helps save them, I can try. Margaret's phone buzzed. She looked at it, her face paling. There's a van outside. White van, no markings. It just pulled up. Claire moved to the window, peering through the blinds. The van sat at the curb, engine running, windows tinted. As she watched, the side door slid open. A man in a white coat stepped out, followed by 2 others in dark suits. Back door, Claire said urgently. Now! They slipped through Claire's back door into the narrow alley that ran behind the townhouses. Claire's car was parked 2 blocks away in a public garage, a habit from years of city living that now felt like Providence. She guided Margaret and Lily through the maze of back streets, her heart hammering with each footstep, each shadow that could hide a pursuer. Where are we going? Margaret whispered, clutching Lily's hand. Somewhere public first, then to Marcus's office. He knows something about all this. They emerged onto a busy commercial street, blending into the afternoon crowd of shoppers and business people. Claire forced herself to walk normally, casually, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Lily walked between them, her small face composed but pale. The coffee shop on 3rd Street was packed with the usual afternoon crowd, students with laptops, mothers with strollers, business meetings over lattes. Claire guided them to a corner table, positioning herself with a view of both entrances. We should call the police, Margaret said quietly. And tell them what? That papers came out of Lily's skin. That men in white coats are following us because of interdimensional messages. Claire shook her head. They'd think we're having a collective breakdown. Lily suddenly grabbed Claire's wrist. They're close, I can feel them searching. How? It's like pressure in my head. They have someone like me with them, someone who can see sideways. The girl's eyes went wide. Oh no, it's Tommy. Tommy. Chen? But he'd be 47, Lily said. But he doesn't look it. None of them age right in the between place. He's helping them track me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He doesn't want to, but they make him. Claire pulled out her phone. Texting Marcus. Coming to your office. Bring medical records from 1989-1990. Pediatric anomalies. His response was immediate. Side entrance, 20 minutes. They left the coffee shop through the back exit near the restrooms, Claire's medical badge getting them through the employee area without question. The walk to the medical complex took 15 minutes, each one feeling like an hour. Twice, Lily stopped, pressing her hands to her temples, whispering that they were getting closer. Marcus was waiting at the side entrance, his usual easy smile replaced by grim concern. Quickly, he said, ushering them inside and up a back stairwell, to his office. Once the door was locked behind them, he turned to Claire. You found one, didn't you? A bridge child. A what? Marcus moved to his filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder marked only with a series of numbers. That's what they called them in the files I managed to copy before they were sealed. Children who could perceive and interact with parallel dimensional spaces. The government identified them in the 1950s. By the 1980s, they had a whole program. He spread papers across his desk, medical records, government letterheads, photographs of children with familiar marks on their foreheads. Project Messenger, Marcus read from one document. Objective, to identify and contain individuals with trans-dimensional perception abilities before they destabilize local reality. Margaret pulled Lily closer. Destabilize reality. According to these files, some of these children could do more than just see into parallel spaces. They could create bridges, small tears in the fabric between dimensions. The government was terrified of what would happen if these abilities manifested uncontrolled. Claire stared at a photograph in the file, a boy about 10 with distinctive marks on his forehead, the name beneath it, Thomas Chen. So they took them, she said, her voice hollow. They took children. They told the families it was for everyone's safety. Most parents were so frightened by what they'd seen, the marks, the impossible knowledge their children displayed, that they agreed to the separation. They were told the children would be cared for, studied, helped to control their abilities. But Emily's messages said they're trapped, Claire protested, in some kind of between place. Marcus nodded gravely. The facility was supposedly designed to contain their abilities. But something went wrong, according to the last reports I could find from 1991. The children began disappearing from the facility itself, not escaping, vanishing. The investigators believed they'd somehow shifted themselves into a parallel space and couldn't get back. Lily spoke up, her young voice cutting through the clinical discussion. They didn't shift themselves. They were pushed. The machines, the ones that were supposed to contain them, they pushed too hard. The children got stuck halfway. She looked at Claire with those unsettling grey-green eyes. Emily shows me in the dreams. They're in a place that's neither here nor there. They can see our world but can't touch it, can't fully exist in it. Dear God, Margaret breathed. Marcus pulled out another document, this one more recent. The project was officially shut down in 1992 after the disappearances, but unofficially, he showed them a photograph dated just 3 years ago. It showed a white van, the same kind that had appeared at Claire's house. They're still operating, still finding bridge children, still trying to contain them. But why did Emily's messages come through Lily specifically? Claire asked. Because I'm stronger, Lily said simply. Emily's been trying to reach you for years, but she needed someone who could receive the messages and make them physical. I'm not just a bridge, I'm a door. That's why they want me so badly. They're afraid of what I might let through. A knock at the office door made them all freeze. Marcus moved cautiously to check the peephole, then relaxed slightly. It's building security, routine check. But Lily shook her head violently. No, it's not. It's him, it's Tommy. He's wearing their uniform, but it's him. Marcus backed away. From the door. The emergency exit, now! They moved quickly through the back of the suite, but as they reached the emergency stairs, Lily stopped abruptly. She stood perfectly still, her eyes unfocused, and when she spoke, it was in a man's voice, tired and broken. Please don't run. They'll hurt you if you run. I don't want anyone else to get hurt. It's not so bad in the between place. You learn to live with it. The humming becomes like silence after a while. Tommy, Claire said. Tommy Chen? Lily's head nodded, though her expression remained blank. Hello, Dr. Mendel. Emily talks about you all the time. She never stopped hoping you'd come. But you can't save us. We're too deep in the between now. Our bodies wouldn't survive the return. But the girl, Lily, she doesn't have to join us. If you come quietly, they'll just study her. They won't push her through like they did us. You're lying, Margaret said fiercely. You're trying to trick us. I'm trying to save her the only way I can, Tommy's voice said through Lily's mouth. They have weapons that can force a bridge child fully into the between. Instant translation. No way back. Please, don't make them use them. Lily gasped, her own consciousness returning. He's gone. But he was telling the truth about the weapons. I could feel it in his thoughts. They can push me through whenever they want. Claire made a decision. Then we need to find out how to pull you back, how to pull all of them back. She turned to Marcus. The files, do they say anything about reversal, about bringing someone back from the between place? Marcus shuffled through the papers desperately. There's something here about resonance frequencies, about finding the right vibration to solidify someone who's stuck between dimensions. But it's all theoretical. They never successfully brought anyone back, because they never had someone like me, Lily said quietly. I'm not just a bridge. I'm a door, and doors. She looked at Claire with sudden hope. Doors can open both ways. The sound of footsteps in the main corridor reached them. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. The parking garage, Marcus said. My car. We need to get somewhere they won't follow, somewhere we can figure this out. As they rushed down the emergency stairs, Claire felt Emily's bracelet burning against her skin, where she'd tied it around her wrist. 36 years of silence, and now everything was happening at once. But she wouldn't lose another child to the between place. Not Lily. And somehow, impossibly, she'd find a way to bring Emily home. Marcus's car smelled of leather and old coffee, a mundane detail that felt surreal, given they were fleeing from government agents who could push children into parallel dimensions. He drove with practiced calm while Claire studied the files in the back seat. Lily pressed between her and Margaret like a small, frightened animal. There's a pattern, Claire said, running her finger down a list of names and dates. All the children taken in 1989 were from a 50-mile radius. Ohio specifically, centered around... She stopped, coordinates swimming before her eyes. Centered around what? Marcus asked, checking his mirrors for the 10th time in as many minutes. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. They were all taken to Wright-Patterson initially before being transferred to the permanent facility. Margaret made a small sound of recognition. My family lived in Fairborn then, right next to the base. We moved to California after Tommy disappeared. My parents said it was for work, but it was really to get away, Claire finished. My parents did the same thing. Sudden move across the country, no forwarding address, no contact with old friends. Lily had been quiet, but now she stirred. There were others. I can feel them in the between place. Not just from 1989, from before, from after. Dozens of them, maybe more. Marcus pulled into a hospital parking garage 3 towns over, spiraling up to the mostly empty top level. We need a plan. They'll have every highway watched, every airport, train station. Claire continued reading through the files. Her medical training helping her pass the technical language. Here, Dr. Helena Voss, the lead researcher. She wrote about frequency resonance, about how each bridge child vibrates at a specific wavelength that allows them to perceive parallel spaces. The containment machines were designed to dampen that vibration, but they dampened too much, Lily said softly, pushed them out of phase with our reality entirely. Claire found another document, this one handwritten, margins filled with desperate notations. Voss tried to bring them back. She writes here about creating an amplification device, something that could strengthen their resonance enough to pull them back into our dimension. But Claire turned the page, finding it blank except for a single line, project terminated by order of Director Ashford. All research to be destroyed. Except Marcus has the research, Margaret pointed out. Marcus shook his head. I have copies of reports, medical files. Not the actual research data. That would have been classified beyond my reach. Claire's phone buzzed. Her mother's number appeared on the screen. She almost didn't answer. Helen had probably heard she'd missed her afternoon appointments, was calling to lecture her about responsibility. But something made her pick up. Claire. Helen's voice was strange, tight with an emotion Claire couldn't identify. Are you safe? Mom? What? How did you know? They called me. The same people who took Emily. They said you have another bridge. Child with you. Claire, you have to listen to me. You can't fight them. They're too powerful. Just give them the girl and walk away. Claire's blood turned to ice. You knew. All these years you knew Emily was alive somewhere, and you never told me. We didn't know she was alive. They told us she'd been relocated for everyone's safety. That contact would be dangerous for both of you. Your father wanted to fight them, but they showed us what these children could do. The reality tears, the dimensional instabilities. We were terrified, Claire. Terrified of what Emily might become. Terrified of what they'd do to us if we didn't cooperate. She was your daughter. And you were too. Helen's voice cracked. They said if we didn't comply, if we tried to find Emily, they'd test you too. They'd take you both. So we stayed quiet. We moved. We tried to forget. But I never forgot, Claire. Not for a single day. Lily suddenly grabbed Claire's arm. Ask her about the attic. About what's hidden there, Claire frowned. Mom, is there something in your attic? Something about Emily or the project? A long pause, then barely a whisper. How could you know about that? Just tell me. Your father. Before he died, he gave me a box. Said it was insurance in case they ever came back. I never opened it. I was too afraid. It's in the attic behind the old water heater. Mum, I need you to get that box. Can you... They're here, Helen said suddenly. White van just pulled up. Claire, they're coming to the door. The line went dead. Claire immediately tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. We have to go to my mother's house. That's exactly what they expect, Marcus warned. I don't care. They have my mother. She turned to Lily. How did you know about the attic? Emily. She's been trying to tell you about it through me. Your father hid something important, something that might help. Marcus started the car. Your mother lives in Pasadena, right? That's 2 hours from here. They'll be watching the routes. Then we take surface streets, back roads, whatever it takes. As they drove, Lily began to speak in a dreamy voice, not Emily this time, but her own strange intuition. The man who ran the project, Director Ashford, he had a son. The son was a bridge child too, one of the first they identified. Ashford thought he could control it, use his son to explore parallel dimensions for scientific advancement. But something went wrong. The son got lost in the between, couldn't find his way back. That's why Ashford became obsessed with containing bridge children. He was trying to prevent what happened to his son from happening to others. But instead he caused exactly that, Margaret said bitterly. Fear makes people do terrible things, Lily said with wisdom beyond her years. He was so afraid of losing control that he destroyed everything he touched. Claire's phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Dr. Mendel? The voice was cultured, authoritative, old. My name is Director Ashford. I believe you have something that belongs to us. Lily doesn't belong to anyone. I'm not talking about the girl. I'm talking about my son's journal. Your father stole it from our archives 36 years ago. It contains information that, in the wrong hands, could destabilize reality as we know it. Claire's mind raced. The box in her mother's attic, it contained the son's journal. Your son was a bridge child. My son was the first bridge child we documented. His experiences, recorded in that journal, map the geography of the between place. They show how to navigate it, how to survive in it, how to return from it. Ashford's voice grew harder. Your father thought he could use it to rescue your sister. He was wrong. But you, Dr. Mendel, you have something he didn't. What's that? Dodor. The girl with you isn't just a bridge. She's a living portal. With my son's journal and her abilities, you could theoretically breach the between place. You could bring them all back. The lost children, your sister, even my son. But doing so would tear a hole in reality that might never close. Are you willing to risk the world for a handful of lost children? Before Claire could answer, Lily spoke, her voice clear and strong. They're not lost, they're waiting. And yes, we're willing to risk everything, because that's what love does. It risks everything. The line went silent for a moment. Then Ashford said quietly, Then God help us all. My men will be waiting at your mother's house. Come alone, Dr. Mendel, bring the girl. Let's end this, one way or another. The drive to Pasadena felt like traveling through thick amber, time stretching and distorting with each mile. Marcus kept to back roads, winding through residential neighborhoods and industrial districts, while Claire tried to process everything she'd learned. Her father had known, had stolen evidence, had died carrying the weight of that secret. We shouldn't go, Marcus said for the third time. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap, Claire agreed. But they have my mother, and we need that. A journal. Lily had been drawing in a small notebook Margaret had found in her purse, her hand moving with unusual precision for a 10-year-old. The image taking shape showed figures floating in darkness, but they weren't random. They were arranged in a pattern, like constellations. What are you drawing? Margaret asked softly. The map, Lily replied without looking up. The children in the between place, they've been building it for years. Each one who gets pushed through adds another point of reference. Tommy showed me before he had to let them back in. She held up the drawing. This is how they're arranged. This is how we find them. Claire studied the image. Her medical training recognized it immediately. It looked like a neural network, points connected by delicate threads. They're connected to each other? They had to be. It's the only way to survive there. Alone you fade. Together you maintain some kind of coherence. Lily's eyes went distant. Your sister, she's one of the strongest nodes. She's been holding some of the younger ones, keeping them from dissolving completely. Dissolving? Margaret's voice was sharp with fear. The between place isn't meant for human consciousness. Stay too long, and you start to forget you were ever solid, ever real. Some of the earliest children, Lily paused, pressing her palm to her forehead. They're just whispers. Now, fragments of memory. Claire felt rage building in her chest. All these children, stolen from their families, pushed into an inhospitable dimension, left to slowly disintegrate. And for what? Fear? Control? Some misguided attempt at protecting reality? They were 10 minutes from her mother's house when Lily suddenly screamed. It wasn't a normal scream. It was multi-layered, as if dozens of voices were crying out through her small throat. Her back arched, and her eyes rolled back, showing only white. "Pull over!" Claire shouted. Marcus yanked the wheel, bringing them to a stop in an empty church parking lot. Claire scrambled into the back seat, holding Lily as the girl convulsed. "They're pulling her," Margaret sobbed. "They're trying to pull her through." Claire could see it now. Lily's form was flickering, becoming translucent at the edges. She was being forcibly shifted into the between place. "No!" Claire pressed her hands against Lily's face, trying to anchor her. "Lily, stay with us. Stay here." But Lily's voice, when it came, was not her own. It was a chorus, children speaking in unison. "The door is opening. He's making us open it from our side. Ashford's son, he's still here, still in the between. He's been waiting. He says if we help him return, he'll let the others go. But it's a lie. It's always been a lie." The flickering intensified. Claire could see through Lily now, could see the car seat beneath her, could see something else. Through Lily's translucent form, Claire glimpsed another place, a vast grey expanse filled with floating figures. And among them, heartbreakingly clear, was Emily, still 10 years old, her hair floating around her face as if she were underwater, her mouth moving in a silent scream. "Emily!" Claire reached out instinctively, her hand passing through Lily toward that other space. The moment her fingers crossed the threshold of Lily's flickering form, Claire felt it, the pull of the between place. It was like being caught in an undertow, dragged toward something vast and empty and terrifyingly quiet. She jerked back, but not before feeling something brush against her fingers. A hand, small, desperate, familiar. Emily had tried to grab her. Lily, solidified suddenly, gasping for air. The glimpse of the between place vanished, leaving them in the ordinary afternoon light of the church parking lot. But something had changed. Claire's hand, the one that had reached through, was different. The fingertips were slightly translucent, as if part of her had been left behind. "We have to go to them," Claire said, staring at her altered fingers. "Not wait for them to come to us. We have to go to the between place ourselves." "That's insane," Marcus said. "You just saw what it does. You'd be trapped like the others. Not if we have the journal. Not if we have Lily as our door." Claire turned to the girl. "Can you do it? Can you open a door that we can pass through safely?" Lily was pale, shaking, but her eyes were determined. "Maybe. With the right anchor. With the right map. But we'd need something more, something to protect us from dispersing once we're there." "The resonance device," Margaret said suddenly. "The one that researcher was building. Could we build one?" Marcus pulled out the files, spreading them across the dashboard. "The specifications are partially here, but we'd need equipment, specialized components. Things we can't just buy at Radio Shack. My mother's house is 5 minutes away," Claire said. The journal might have what we need, and if Ashford is there—" She paused, thinking. "He wants his son back. That's what this has always been about. He's been using other children as test subjects, trying to find a way to rescue his own child. So we use that," Marcus said slowly. "We bargain. The journal and our cooperation for the equipment we need." Claire looked at her translucent fingertips again. The effect was spreading, very slowly, like frost creeping across a window. She had maybe hours before it reached her hand, days before. It became irreversible. The between place had tasted her, and now it wanted more. "We don't have time for complex negotiations," she said. "Every minute we wait, those children fade a little more. Emily fades a little more." Lily placed her small hand over Claire's altered one. "I can slow it down, the spreading. But you're right, we need to move fast." She closed her eyes, and Claire felt warmth flow from the child's touch. The translucence stopped advancing, though it didn't reverse. "Then we go," Margaret said firmly. "We get the journal, we get what we need from Ashford, and we bring them all home. Every last child he stole." Marcus started the car. "You realize we're probably not coming back from this. Even if we succeed, even if we bring the children back, the government won't let us just walk away. We know too much." Claire thought about her ordered life, her pristine office, her carefully maintained emotional distance from everything and everyone. It all seemed so small now, so pointless. She'd spent 36 years building walls to keep the pain out, but the pain had always been inside, trapped like Emily in the between place. "Then we make sure it's worth it," she said. "We make sure everyone knows what they did. We make sure it can never happen again." As they drove the final miles to her mother's house, Lily began to hum, a strange, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate in Claire's bones. It was, Claire realized, the frequency of the between place. The child was already beginning to tune herself to that other dimension, preparing to become the door they would need. Through her translucent fingertips, Claire could feel Emily reaching out across impossible space, waiting, hoping, holding on by threads of love and memory. "We're coming," Claire whispered. "All of us. We're finally coming to bring you home." Helen Mendel's house stood exactly as Claire remembered it, a 2-story colonial with white shutters and a garden that had once been her father's pride. Now 3 white vans lined the street, and men in dark suits stood at strategic points around the property. They made no move to stop Marcus's car as it pulled into the driveway. Director Ashford waited on the front porch, and Claire's first thought was that he looked like somebody's grandfather, white-haired, slightly stooped, wearing a cardigan despite the warm afternoon. Only his eyes betrayed him. They were cold, calculating, and desperately sad. "Dr. Mendel," he said as she emerged from the car, "you look very much like your sister. Where's my mother?" "Inside, unharmed. Having tea, actually. She makes excellent tea." He studied Lily as Margaret helped her from the car. "And you must be the door. Remarkable. In all my years studying bridge children, I've never encountered one quite like you." "That's because you pushed them all into the between before they could develop," Claire said coldly. Ashford's face tightened. "We did what we thought was necessary. The tears in reality. You haven't seen what they can do. Whole city blocks phasing in and out of existence. People trapped halfway between dimensions, screaming for help we couldn't give. My son—" He stopped, composing himself. "My son was trying to map parallel worlds when he got lost. He was brilliant, you know. Just 15. But brilliant. 15, Marcus said. "The files said the bridge children were all pre-adolescent." "The files you stole were incomplete," Ashford replied. "My son was the first we identified, back in 1952. We didn't understand the danger then. We thought his abilities were a gift, a tool for exploration. By the time we realized the truth, he was already gone." They followed him inside. Helen sat in the living room, her hands wrapped around a teacup, her face pale but determined. When she saw Claire, tears began to fall. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For all of it. For letting them take her. For lying to you. For being too much of a coward to fight. Claire wanted to be angry, but seeing her mother, older, frailer, broken by decades of guilt, she felt only exhaustion. The box Dad left. We need it. I'll get it, Helen said, starting to rise. No need, Ashford said. He gestured and one of his men brought in a dusty banker's box. We retrieved it already. Your father was quite resourceful, Dr. Mendel. He managed to steal not just my son's journal, but also Dr. Voss's complete research notes. Everything needed to build a resonance amplifier. Everything needed to open a stable door to the between place. He opened the box, revealing notebooks, technical diagrams, and a leather journal worn soft with age. Claire reached for the journal, but Ashford pulled it back. First, we need to discuss terms, he said. You want to rescue the lost children. I want my son back. These goals aren't incompatible, but the method matters. An uncontrolled breach could unravel everything. You mean you want to control it, Margaret said, like you've controlled everything else? Ashford turned to her, and for a moment, his composure cracked. Your brother, Thomas Chen, he was one of our most successful partial returns. We managed to pull him most of the way back, but he exists now in a permanent state of phase shift, neither fully here nor there. He volunteered to help us track other bridge children, hoping we could complete his return. He paused. We never could. So you use him, Margaret said, her voice shaking with rage. You use a damaged man to hunt children. We use him to prevent more children from suffering his fate, Ashford corrected. Every bridge child we contain is one less potential dimensional tear. Lily, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. You're lying. Everyone turned to look at her. Not about the tears, she continued, her young voice eerily calm. Those are real, but about why you continue the program. Show them the real files, Director. Show them Project Echo. Ashford went very still. How could you possibly know about that? Your son told me. He's been listening from the between place. He knows what you've been doing. Lily's eyes began to glow with that strange grey-green light. Project Echo, using bridge children as communication devices with parallel dimensions, trading information, technology, resources with other versions of Earth. That's why you really want them contained, not to protect our reality, but to exploit their abilities. The room erupted. Marcus grabbed the box of documents, backing toward the door. Helen gasped, her teacup shattering on the floor. But Claire stayed focused on Ashford, watching his face transform from surprise to resignation. It's true, isn't it? She said. This was never about protection. It was about power. Ashford sat heavily in a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 70-odd years. It started as protection. I swear to you it did. But when we realized what the bridge children could do, the information they could access from parallel worlds, the government saw opportunity. Technological advancement, economic advantages, military intelligence from dimensions where history played out differently. You turned children into tools, Claire said, disgusted. We turned a curse into a resource, Ashford replied. Do you know how many medical breakthroughs came from information gathered through bridge children? How many disasters were prevented because we could see how they played out in parallel worlds? And how many children disappeared forever? Margaret demanded. How many families destroyed? 47, Lily said quietly. 47 children pushed fully into the between place since 1952. 32 still survive there, including Emily and Director Ashford's son, Michael. The others have dissolved completely. Ashford's face crumpled at his son's name. Michael. He sends messages sometimes through the newer bridge children, fragments of thoughts. He says the between place is beautiful and terrible. He says time moves differently there. He's been 15 for 70 years. Enough, Claire said. We're going to bring them back, all of them, and then we're going to expose everything. Project Messenger, Project Echo, all of it. You can't, Ashford said. The dimensional fabric won't survive that many simultaneous returns. Dr. Voss calculated it. More than 5 or 6 beings pulled through at once would create a permanent rift. Then we'll bring them back in groups, Marcus suggested. No, Lily said. That won't work. They're too interconnected now. Pull one, and you destabilize the entire network. It's all or nothing. Claire looked at the journal in Ashford's hands. Unless we don't pull them back, unless we go to them instead. Everyone stared at her. Think about it, she continued. The problem is bringing them through the barrier between dimensions. But what if we don't bring them through? What if we stabilize them where they are, make the between place habitable? That's impossible, Ashford said. The between place is inherently unstable. Human consciousness can't maintain coherence there. Not alone, Claire agreed. But Lily isn't just a bridge or a door. She's something more. She turned to the girl. You could anchor them, couldn't you? Create a stable pocket within the between place. Lily nodded slowly. Maybe, but I'd have to stay there. Permanently. I'd become part of the between place itself, a living foundation for the others to exist on. No, Margaret said immediately. Absolutely not. I won't lose you too. You wouldn't lose me, Lily said, taking her grandmother's hand. I'd just be somewhere else. And I could visit, through dreams, through other bridge children. I wouldn't be gone. I'd be the bridge that lets them all come home, even if home is a different place than we thought. Ashford stood abruptly. This is insane. You're talking about you fundamentally altering the nature of parallel dimensional space. The consequences of doing nothing are 47 children lost forever, Claire interrupted, including your son. That stopped him. He looked at the journal in his hands, then at Lily, then back at Claire. If we do this, if we attempt something this radical, I need your word that the children will be protected, that they won't be exploited anymore. You're hardly in a position to make demands, Marcus pointed out. No, Ashford agreed, but I am in a position to help. I have resources, equipment, personnel who understand the science, and I have 70 years of guilt to atone for. He held out the journal to Claire. Your father was right to steal this. I was so blinded by grief and ambition that I lost sight of what mattered. Michael wouldn't want his journal used to trap more children. He'd want it used to free them. Claire took the journal, feeling the weight of decades in her hands. Inside, a 15-year-old boy had documented his journey into impossible spaces, never knowing he was writing the map home for dozens of lost children. We'll need a controlled environment, she said, slipping into planning mode. Somewhere isolated, with the equipment to build the resonance amplifier. The original facility, Ashford said. It's been abandoned for decades, but the infrastructure is still there. The containment equipment could be reversed, turned into stabilization machinery. How long would it take? Claire asked. With my resources and your determination, 48 hours, maybe less. Claire looked at Lily, this remarkable child who was willing to sacrifice her own normal life to save children she'd never met. At Margaret, whose love for her granddaughter warred with the understanding that this might be their only chance. At her mother, broken by decades of guilt. At Marcus, who'd risked everything to help them. Then we'd better get started, she said. Emily's waited long enough to come home. The abandoned facility squatted in the Ohio countryside like a concrete wound, its brutalist architecture unchanged since the 1960s. Weeds pushed through cracks in the parking lot, and windows stared blindly at the approaching convoy. But beneath, the decay, Claire could feel it. A wrongness in the air, as if reality itself was thinner here. This is where it happened, Ashford said quietly as they stood before the main entrance. Where we first breached the between place, where my son disappeared. He touched the rusted door handle with reverence. I haven't been back since 1992. The interior was worse than the outside, peeling paint, water damage, the smell of decades of abandonment. But the infrastructure Ashford had promised was there. Massive machines, dormant but intact, cables thick as tree trunks running through reinforced concrete walls, and at the center of it all, a chamber that made Claire's skin crawl. It was circular, about 30 feet across, with walls lined with what looked like metallic mesh. The floor was etched with complex geometric patterns that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. The containment chamber, Ashford explained. This is where we would bring bridge children to study their abilities. He stopped, unable to continue. Where you pushed them through, Lily finished. She walked to the center of the chamber, her small form dwarfed by the space. I can feel them, the echoes of all the children who passed through here. They're still screaming. Margaret started toward her, but Lily held up a hand. It's okay, Grandma. They're not in pain anymore, they're just memories. But we can use them, the memories, as anchor points. Each child who was pushed through left a trace, a weakness in the barrier. We can follow those traces back. Ashford's team had worked through the night, bringing in modern equipment to interface with the old machinery. Computer terminals now linked to systems that had once run on punch cards. Digital sensors replaced analog meters. But the core technology remained unchanged. The resonance generators that had once dampened bridge children's abilities, now being reconfigured to amplify them. Dr. Marcus Webb had thrown himself into the technical work with surprising expertise. I did my residency at Johns Hopkins, he explained when Claire expressed surprise. Worked with the biomedical engineering department on neural resonance. Never thought I'd be applying it to interdimensional travel. Helen had insisted on coming, despite Claire's protests. I ran from this for 36 years, her mother said firmly. I'm not running anymore. She'd spent the hours organizing supplies, making sandwiches that no one ate, brewing pot after pot of coffee that grew cold untouched. The journal, Michael Ashford's journal, lay open on a makeshift desk. Claire had read it through 3 times, now each pass revealing new details. The boy had been brilliant, mapping dimensional topology with the language of a poet-scientist. His descriptions of the between place were both beautiful and terrifying. It's like being underwater and in space at the same time, he'd written. You float, but the floating has weight. You can see everything. All the parallel worlds layered like transparent photographs, but you can't touch any of them. You reach out and your hand passes through reality like it's made of light. Later, entries grew more desperate. I can feel myself spreading thin. Every day I'm a little less concentrated, a little more diffuse. Dad says he's working on bringing me back, but I don't think I can come back. Not all of me. Parts have already drifted too far. The final entry, dated 3 weeks after his disappearance. The others are here now, children like me. We help each other remember our names, our faces. Without them, I would have dissolved completely. We're building something together, a web of consciousness to keep us whole. But we need an anchor. We need something solid to hold on to, or we'll all become whispers. That's what Lily will be, Claire said, looking up from the journal. Their anchor. Lily sat cross-legged in the containment chamber, her eyes closed, humming that strange resonant tone. Around her, Ashford's technicians installed sensors, adjusted equipment, ran endless calculations. The resonance amplifier is nearly ready, Ashford reported, but I need to be clear about the risks. Once we activate it, once Lily opens the door fully, there's no controlling what comes through. If the calculations are wrong, if the barrier tears instead of opens, the world ends, Claire finished. You've mentioned that. Not ends, changes. Realities would bleed together. Physical laws from parallel dimensions would overlap with ours. Gravity might work differently in some places. Time might flow backward in others. Human civilization as we know it would cease to function. But you don't think that will happen, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Ashford was quiet for a moment. Dr. Voss believed it was possible to create a stable bridge. She died before she could prove it, but her mathematics were sound. And Lily, he looked at the girl with something approaching awe. She's not just opening a door. She's becoming one. A living, conscious portal that can regulate the flow between dimensions. At the cost of her childhood, Margaret said bitterly. Her freedom. Her life. Not her life, Lily said, opening her eyes. A different kind of life. I've been preparing for this my whole existence, even before I knew it. Every dream, every moment of knowing things I shouldn't know. It was all leading here. She stood, walking to her grandmother. I'm not dying, Grandma. I'm becoming something new, something necessary. Margaret pulled her into a fierce embrace. You're 10 years old. You shouldn't have to be necessary. But I am, Lily said simply. And I choose this. Claire watched them, thinking of Emily at 10, disappeared without a choice. Of all the children taken over the decades, stripped of agency, used as tools. At least Lily had a choice. At least this time, the sacrifice was voluntary. We're ready, one of the technicians announced. The room fell silent. After 2 days of frantic preparation, the moment had arrived. The resonance amplifier, a framework of crystalline rods and fiber optic cables, stood ready in the containment chamber. Sensors showed dimensional thickness at 0.23 standard, dangerously thin, but stable. I need to go in alone first, Lily said, to establish the anchor. Once I'm stable, Claire can follow with the amplifier. That's not what we discussed, Ashford protested. The plan was based on theory, Lily interrupted, but I can feel what needs to happen. The between place is rejecting our reality now, defending itself. If we all go at once, it'll push us out. But if I go first, if I offer myself as a willing bridge, it'll accept me. Then I can hold the door open for Claire. Claire's translucent fingers had spread to her entire hand now. The between places claim on her was growing stronger. How long will you need? Minutes in our time. But time moves differently there. It might feel like hours to me, or seconds. There's no way to know. Ashford handed Claire a device that looked like a modified tablet. This will monitor Lily's neural activity once she's through. If her patterns start to dissipate, if she begins to dissolve, I pull her back immediately. Claire finished. You try to pull her back. Once she's fully integrated with the between place, she might be irretrievable. Margaret kissed Lily's forehead. You come back to me. Whatever form you take, however changed you are, you come back. I promise, Grandma. Helen approached Claire, pressing something into her good hand. It was a photograph. Claire and Emily at the beach, maybe a year before Emily disappeared. They were building a sand castle, laughing at something off camera. Bring her home, Helen whispered. However you can. Bring my baby home. Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. They took their positions. Lily stood in the center of the containment chamber, the resonance amplifier beside her, but not yet activated. Claire waited at the chamber's edge, the monitoring tablet in one hand, Michael's journal in the other. Ashford manned the main control console, his team ready at various stations. Dimensional resonance at baseline, a technician reported. Quantum, flux stable. Bridge child's vital signs normal. Lily began to hum again, that otherworldly tone that seemed to vibrate in dimensions humans couldn't perceive. The geometric patterns on the floor began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter. Resonance climbing, the technician said, voice tight. 0.5 standard, 0.7, 1.0. The air in the chamber began to shimmer. Lily's form wavered, becoming translucent at the edges. Through her, Claire could see hints of that grey expanse, the between place. Standard, approaching critical threshold. Lily, Claire called out. Are you okay? The girl's voice came as if from a great distance. I can see them, all of them. They're waiting. Emily says to tell you she never stopped believing you'd come. 2.0 standard, breach imminent. The shimmer became a tear. Reality split along an invisible seam, and through it, Claire saw the between place in all its terrible beauty. Dozens of figures floated in the grey void, some clear, others barely visible. And there, reaching toward the tear with desperate hope, was Emily, 10 years old forever, her hair floating in the dimensionless space, her eyes wide with recognition and love and decades of patient hope. Claire! Emily's voice, exactly as Claire remembered it, young and bright and impossibly alive. Breach achieved, the technician announced unnecessarily. Lily stepped forward into the tear, her form shifting from solid to something else, something that existed in both places at once. She turned back, her face serene, despite the impossibility of what she was becoming. "Now," she said, her voice echoing in multiple dimensions. "Come through now, before the window closes." Claire didn't hesitate. She grabbed the resonance amplifier and stepped into the between place, following a 10-year-old girl into the space where her sister had been waiting for 36 years. Stepping into the between place was like drowning in air. Claire's lungs pulled at nothing, her body expecting resistance that didn't exist. She floated, the resonance amplifier drifting beside her, tethered to her wrist by a cord that looked solid but felt like holding on to light. The grey expanse stretched infinitely in all directions, but it wasn't empty. Layers of reality shimmered at the edges of perception, ghost images of parallel worlds bleeding through. She saw her mother's house as it existed in a dozen dimensions, sometimes blue instead of white, sometimes gone entirely, replaced by forest, or ocean, or structures her mind couldn't process. "Claire!" Emily floated toward her, moving with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent decades learning to navigate nothingness. When they collided, Claire expected to pass through her sister, like a ghost, but Emily was solid, more solid than anything else in this space. They held each other, Claire sobbing into her sister's unchanging 10-year-old shoulder, Emily clinging with desperate strength. She still smelled the same, like strawberry shampoo and the lavender soap their mother had always bought. "You came," Emily whispered. "You actually came. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm so sorry. You didn't know. How could you know?" Emily pulled back, studying Claire's face with wonder. "You got old." Claire laughed through her tears. 46 isn't old. It is when you're 10 forever. Emily's expression shifted, becoming serious beyond her apparent years. "We don't have much time. The others are scared. Some of them have been here so long, they don't remember having bodies." She led Claire deeper into the grey, where the other children floated in a loose constellation. Claire recognized Tommy Chen. Immediately, not the 47-year-old man who'd tracked them, but a boy of 11, his eyes holding decades of patient endurance. "Dr. Mendel," he said formally. "Thank you for coming." Others drifted closer. Patricia Hoffman, the girl who'd disappeared a month before Emily. David Watts, taken in 1973, his form flickering and uncertain. A boy who introduced himself as Marcus, not her Marcus, but Ashford's son, Michael, 15 forever, his eyes holding terrible knowledge. "You're the anchor's companion," Michael said, studying Claire with scientific curiosity. "The girl, Lily, she's already begun changing the fundamental structure of this space. Can you feel it?" Claire could. Where Lily floated at the center of their gathering, the grey seemed denser, more real. The girl was glowing with soft light, threads of luminescence extending from her to each of the lost children, connecting them, strengthening them. "The amplifier," Lily said, her voice carrying perfectly in the soundless void. "We need to activate it now, while I'm still strong enough to maintain the connections." Claire pulled the device to her, following the instructions Ashford's team had drilled into her. The amplifier unfolded like an exotic flower, crystalline rods extending to form a complex geometric structure. It should have been impossible to orient it properly in a space without up or down, but Michael guided her hands with surprising gentleness. "Here," he said, "the dimensional vertices align with these specific angles. My father designed this based on my early notes, didn't he? I can see his hand in the mathematics." "He never stopped trying to save you," Claire told him. "I know. I've watched him through the thin places, watched him age, watched him grieve, watched him do terrible things. In my name." Michael's young face held infinite sadness. "I forgave him long ago. Pain makes people do unforgivable things." The amplifier hummed to life, or what passed for life in this space. The sound was felt rather than heard, a vibration that seemed to organize the chaos of the between place into something approaching structure. "It's working," Emily breathed. "I can feel it. We're becoming more solid." But something else was happening too. The grey space began to pulse, contracting and expanding like a massive heart. With each pulse, the ghost images of parallel worlds grew clearer, more insistent. "The space is destabilizing," Michael said urgently. "Too many anchor points, too much forced coherence. It's creating a resonance cascade." Claire looked at Lily, who was straining now, her child's face twisted with effort. "What do we do?" "We need to reduce the load," Lily gasped. "Some of the children, the ones who've faded too much, they need to let go, to accept dissolution. Otherwise the cascade will tear everything apart." "No," Emily said immediately. "We don't leave anyone behind." "We might not have a choice," Tommy said quietly. "Look." He pointed to the edges of their gathering where the most faded children floated. They were barely visible now, more suggestion than form. One of them, a girl who might have been 8 or 80, was looking at her hands as they flickered in and out of existence. "I'm tired," she said, her voice like wind through leaves. "I've been tired for so long, maybe it's okay to let go." "Don't!" Emily reached for her, but her hand passed through. The girl was already too far gone. "Wait," Claire said, struck by sudden inspiration. She pulled out Michael's journal, its pages somehow intact despite the impossible environment. "Michael, you wrote about consciousness webs, about how you all maintained coherence by connecting to each other." "Yes, but what if we don't reduce the load? What if we distribute it differently? Not everyone anchored to Lily, but creating a network. Each stronger child supporting a weaker one, all of them connected, but not all directly to the center." Michael's eyes widened with understanding. "A neural network model. Distributed processing instead of centralized. It could work, but we'd need to reconfigure quickly. The cascade is accelerating. The pulsing was getting stronger. Through the fluctuations, Claire could see their world, the containment chamber, Ashford at the controls, Margaret pressed against the barrier, screaming something Claire couldn't hear. "Do it," Lily said, her voice strained but determined. "Show them how. I'll hold the center as long as I can." Claire and Michael began working together, the 15-year-old genius and the middle-aged doctor, reconfiguring the network of lost children as reality itself threatened to collapse around them. The reconfiguration was like conducting an orchestra, where every musician existed in a different dimension. Claire and Michael moved through the cluster of children, physically guiding them into new positions, creating connections with threads of consciousness that Lily spun from her own being. "Tommy, you're strong enough to anchor Patricia and David," Michael instructed, his 15-year-old authority carrying the weight of 7 decades. "Emily, you take the 3 youngest. They trust you." Emily nodded, gathering the faded children to her with infinite tenderness. One was so translucent Claire could barely see her. A girl named Sarah who'd been taken in 1958, one of the first. Emily whispered to her constantly, reminding her of her name, her life, the feeling of sunshine on skin. The pulsing grew violent. Reality windows opened and closed around them like wounds. Through one, Claire saw the containment chamber's ceiling beginning to crack. Through another, she glimpsed a world where the facility had never been built, where children played in a meadow instead. "The cascade is approaching critical," Michael announced, his voice cracking with strain. "If we can't stabilize in the next minute, we will," Lily said firmly. The child floated at the network's center, her small body radiating light that grew brighter with each pulse. "Everyone hold on, this is gonna hurt." She closed her eyes and pulled. Claire felt it immediately, a sensation like being turned inside out while simultaneously compressed to a point. The grey space contracted violently, all the scattered consciousness of the between place suddenly forced into proximity. Children screamed, reality windows shattered like glass, their fragments spinning through the void. But the network held. Where there had been chaos, structure emerged. The children linked hand to hand, consciousness to consciousness, forming a living web with Lily at its heart. The weakest drew strength from the strongest. The most faded became solid through borrowed coherence. Even Sarah, nearly dissolved, began to take recognizable form again. "It's working," Emily gasped, her hand tight in Claire's. "We're stabilizing." But Lily was paying the price. The child's form was changing, becoming less human and more something else, a living intersection of dimensions. Her edges blurred, extending into fractal patterns that hurt to perceive directly. "Lily!" Claire reached for her, but Michael held her back. "Don't! She's becoming what she needs to be. If you interrupt now, we all collapse." Through their connection to the real world, Claire could hear alarms blaring. Ashford's voice, distorted but recognizable. "Dimensional variance at 300%. The containment chamber won't hold." Margaret screamed, "Bring her back, bring my baby back." "We need to return," Michael said urgently. "The children are stable, but our presence here is causing too much strain on local reality. We need to—" He stopped, his face going pale. Through the largest reality window, they could see into the containment chamber. But something was wrong. The room was filling with men in white coats. Not Ashford's people, but others. Government agents who'd somehow learned about the breach. "They're going to sever the connection," Michael said. "They're going to trap us all here permanently." "No," Claire said. "Not after we've come this far." She looked at the resonance amplifier, still humming with power, then at Emily's locket, the one mentioned in the messages, but that she hadn't noticed until now, hanging around her sister's neck after all these years. The locket their mother had given Emily for her 10th birthday, with pictures of their family inside. "Emily, give me your locket." "What? Why?" "Trust me." Emily pulled it off, the cheap chain breaking easily. Claire opened it, seeing the tiny photographs. Inside, their family as it had been, whole and happy. She placed the locket at the center of the resonance amplifier. "What are you doing?" Michael asked. "Creating an emotional anchor. The amplifier strengthens resonance, right? Well, nothing resonates stronger than love, than family, than the connections that brought us here in the first place." She thought of her mother, waiting in that facility, holding on to hope after 36 years, of Margaret, willing to lose her granddaughter to save other people's children, of Marcus, risking his career and freedom, of Ashford, trying to atone for decades of wrong choices. The locket began to glow. "Everyone think of home," Claire commanded. "Not the place, the feeling, the people who love you, the ones who never stopped looking for you. Hold that feeling and push it through the network." 47 lost children closed their eyes and remembered home. The grey space filled with the accumulated weight of decades of love, grief, hope, and determination. The network didn't just stabilize, it began to pulse with warm, golden light. "Now," Lily said, her voice coming from everywhere and nowhere, "while the door is widest, everyone through, quickly." The children began moving toward the breach, which had expanded into a proper doorway. But the agents in the real world were setting up some kind of device, preparing to close it. "They won't make it in time," Michael said. "The younger ones are too slow." Claire made a decision that felt inevitable. "Then we carry them." She grabbed Sarah, the nearly dissolved girl, holding her tight. Emily took 2 of the youngest. Michael and Tommy grabbed others. Together, they flew toward the closing door, reality bending around them as 2 dimensions tried to exist in the same space. Behind them, Lily spread herself thin, becoming not just a door but a bridge, a road, a way home that couldn't be closed. As long as she existed, they burst through the breach just as the agents activated their device. The dimensional doorway tried to close, but Lily held it open through sheer will, her child's face set with determination that could bend reality itself. "Everyone through?" she asked, her voice fading. Claire looked around the containment chamber, counting 46 children, aged and unaged, solid and translucent, but all undeniably present, all except, "Where's Lily?" The containment chamber was chaos. 46 children who'd been trapped between dimensions for decades suddenly existed in real space again, some solid, others flickering, all disoriented. Government agents shouted orders that no one followed. Ashford's team rushed to provide medical support, and in the center of it all, Margaret Chen fell to her knees, staring at the spot where her granddaughter should have been. "Where is she?" Margaret's voice broke. "Where's my Lily?" Claire looked back at the dimensional breach, now stabilized into something like a window. Through it, she could see Lily, or what Lily had become. The girl existed as a lattice of light, her consciousness spread across the boundary between worlds, maintaining the bridge that had allowed the others to return. "I'm here, Grandma." Lily's voice came from everywhere, from the walls, from the air itself. "I'm just different now. Shut it down." The lead agent, a woman with steel-grey hair and cold eyes, commanded, "Close the breach immediately." "You can't," Michael Ashford said, his 15-year-old body containing 70 years of knowledge. "She is the breach now. Close it and you destroy her." The agent turned to Director Ashford. "You've created a permanent dimensional instability. This is exactly what we were trying to prevent." "No," Ashford said, moving to stand protectively near the returned children. "What you were trying to prevent was loss of control. Well, you've lost it, and thank God for that." Emily hadn't let go of Claire since they'd returned. She stood pressed against her sister's side, solid and real, but still 10 years old in a room full of people who'd aged 36 years without her. Their mother approached slowly, as if afraid Emily might disappear if she moved too quickly. "Emily?" Helen's voice was barely a whisper. "My baby? Mom?" Emily's voice cracked. She flew into Helen's arms, both of them sobbing, holding each other with desperate strength. Around the room, similar reunions were happening or weren't. Tommy Chen embraced his sister Margaret, even as they both grieved for Lily. Sarah, the girl from 1958, had no family left alive. David Watts's parents had died, believing their son was gone forever. Some of the children had aged internally despite their young bodies, carrying decades of experience in child-sized frames. Others seemed truly frozen, as confused as if they'd disappeared yesterday. "This is impossible," the steel-haired agent said. "They can't simply reintegrate into society. Some of them have been gone for 70 years. They have no legal existence, no place in the world." "Then we make them a place," Marcus Webb said firmly. He'd been documenting everything with his phone, streaming it live before the agents could stop him. "The whole world is about to know what you did to these children. The experiments, the cover-ups, the decades of lies." The agent pulled out a device, likely some kind of signal jammer, but it was too late. The stream had already gone viral. Between Place Children was trending within minutes. "You have no idea what you've done," the agent said coldly. "The dimensional barriers are stable," Lily's voice interrupted. "More stable than they've ever been, actually. I'm not just holding the door open. I'm reinforcing the walls, making sure no one else falls through by accident. The tears in reality you were so afraid of, I'm healing them." Claire felt it then. A shift in the air, a settling, like the world itself taking a deep breath after holding it for decades. The wrongness she'd felt when they'd arrived at the facility was gone. "The children need medical attention," Claire said, shifting into doctor mode. "Many of them are suffering from dimensional displacement syndrome. I can see it in their cellular structure. They'll need specialized care to fully reintegrate." "I can help with that," Michael said. "I spent 70 years studying the between place from the inside. I know how to help them adjust." Ashford looked at his son, 15 forever, brilliant, lost and found. "Michael, I'm so sorry for everything." "I know, Dad." Michael's young face held forgiveness that had been decades in the making. "We have work to do, all of us. These children need homes, support, a way forward. And Lily," he looked at the dimensional window where the girl existed as living light. "Lily needs to know she's not alone." "I'm not alone," Lily said. "And for The first time since her transformation, she sounded like a 10-year-old girl again. I can feel all of you, every person I helped save, every connection we made. It's all still here. I'm the bridge, but bridges connect things. I'm not lost, I'm just everywhere. Margaret stood walking to the dimensional window. She pressed her hand against it, and incredibly, Lily's hand, translucent but visible, pressed back from the other side. Can you visit? Margaret asked. In dreams, like you said, every night if you want. And sometimes, when the dimensions align just right, I can be more solid. I'm learning to control it. Michael's going to help me. He says there are equations that might let me manifest physically for short periods. 6 months later, Claire stood in her office, the same office where this had all begun. But everything had changed. The walls were covered with photos now. Emily at her new school, finally getting to finish 5th grade. The rescued children at various stages of recovery and reintegration. Lily's smiling face from before her transformation, and strange, beautiful photographs of her light form visiting through dreams. The government had tried to suppress the story, but Marcus's video had made that impossible. The world knew about the between-placed children. Funds had been established for their care. Families had come forward to adopt those without relatives. Sarah from 1958 lived with Helen now, finally having the grandmother she'd never had. Emily knocked on the door. Claire, Mum says dinner's ready. 46 years old and 10 years old respectively, but they were learning to be sisters again. Emily attended school during the day and helped at the clinic in the afternoons, fascinated by medicine. She said she wanted to be a doctor like Claire, but one who helped children from both sides of reality. I'll be right there, Claire said, finishing her notes on her latest patient, one of the returned children, slowly adjusting to linear time after decades of dimensional drift. As she prepared to leave, the air shimmered. Lily appeared more solid than she'd been in months, smiling. Hi, Dr. Claire. I wanted to say thank you for not giving up, for finding a way. Lily, you saved everyone. You sacrificed. I transformed, Lily corrected gently, and I gained more than I lost. I can see every possible world now, and in all of them, this is the one where love won. She faded like morning mist, but her warmth remained. Claire closed her office, heading home to dinner with her family, her mother, her sister, Sarah, and often Margaret and the others. They were an unusual family, connected by tragedy and triumph, by loss and impossible recovery. The friendship bracelet Emily had made all those years ago still circled Claire's wrist, no longer a reminder of loss, but a symbol of persistence. Love had reached across dimensions, through decades of separation, and brought them home. Not all of them, not in the way they'd expected, but home nonetheless. And somewhere between dimensions, a 10-year-old girl made of light kept watch, ensuring no child would ever be lost in the between place again.